Panharmonicon presents a podcast.
Superman. Superman. Superman.
Superman. That probably a little racist.
What did you say?
I kind of did mine with an accent. I'll pull that back.
I didn't even notice that. I just thought you're
Superman. Superman.
Superman. Superman. Did you want to stand up and yell that?
When they were chanting,
Yeah. In every showing I saw, I wanted to stand up and chant it, but I feel like the audience, like I would get told to sit down.
Yeah, you would have been told. I would have been like, sit down. What are you doing? No, it was one of those like good feel moments in there though. Mm-hmm. I remember I was like, it almost kind of felt forced, but at the same time, you're like, people probably would be chanting.
Yeah,
especially like if a being came down and stopped my people from dying. Yeah, and then the same people who were trying to kill me came again to do it, I would be like, please.
Please, person who came and stopped it the first time. But well, I guess that spoils what we're talking about. Yeah, it's Superman. I mean, of course, as you did,
title probably did it for you.
That all gave it, just being silly. But welcome back, folks. Welcome back. Happy to have you here. So this is yet another episode of Panharmonicon Studios presents
a podcast.
Ooh. And this is a very special episode because Superman's here. It's finally here. So, of course, before we get too deep into this, we're going to be going over this very in depth. So expect a lot of spoilers. If you don't want anything spoiled for you, please go see this movie as soon as possible. I highly recommend doing that. And then come back and listen. But again, fair warning. Listen at your own. What is that word?
Peril.
Peril. Yeah. Ooh.
Peril sounds too.
Peril sounds a little.
It's a little. Yeah.
Listen at your own.
Risk.
Oh my gosh! Thank you so much.
Yeah. Risk is better than peril, or your own accord.
But for some people, it might be peril.
You probably got a few more problems if that somehow is your peril.
Hey.
But or maybe you don't have problems if that's your peril. This is the reverse, right?
Yeah.
If that's the worst thing that can happen to you is two dudes ruin Superman.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had your life. But spoiler warning, and that's all you're gonna get because we're gonna start spoiling the mess out of this movie
right out of the gate. Right out of the gate.
I don't know. This is a brand new movie. I don't really know if just like a straight synopsis is warranted. Just simply because it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
It's not a comic book story. Definitely a comic book movie. And if I were to just summarize it, it would be Superman. And we're going to use peril now. Superman was in peril. Superman got out of peril. Superman saved the day.
Yes.
And that is every single Superman story that has existed since Siegler and Schuster came out and made this guy a thing.
Yeah, no, and that's true. But I think when it comes to Superman as portrayed on the live screen, as portrayed in film, that's something that we haven't seen in quite some time. At least the way that it was done.
Yeah.
The amount of, I think, sort of care and compassion with which Superman was portrayed has not been done this way in a very long time. And that was very refreshing to see. So if you're right out of the gate, just very curious as to what we thought about it, and of course, since we saw it last night, had a couple minutes to talk about it. Mwah. Chef's kiss.
My feelings have not changed.
Yeah.
Still my favorite Superman movie.
So you're saying you didn't have like a X-Men Last Stand moment?
No, not this time.
Not you started thinking about it more. Like, wait a minute.
In fact, as I sat and I wrote my notes, I realized kind of all the like small nuances that I had picked up, but like kept in the back of my mind, so that I'd be able to pull them out to the front when I'm actually like sitting down and typing everything out. and it just made me love it more. And one thing I learned, while I was doing this, I don't know when the interview was, but apparently James Gunn had been asked to do Superman back in 2018.
Oh.
So he declined and instead did the Suicide Squad. But he was asked all the way back then to do Superman.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't think that he could do it justice at that time. My guess is that he probably would have been doing what, Man of Steel 2, or my guess is he wasn't going to be allowed to do his Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so he waited until they were desperate enough to essentially be like, please help us. And as a result, he's allowed to come back and like fulfill his vision. And fulfill his vision he did. This movie truly does have James's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, in many ways. And there were some things that I saw that I really can't wait to dig into with you that I kind of noticed. I don't know if it was maybe intentionally a nod to, the comic book cinematic universe that James Gunn came from, but there was at least one scene in it that kind of reminded me of one of those movies from the MCU, which I very much would like to talk about with you. But of course, there's a lot, I think, to tackle with this movie. A lot of things I want to talk about. I know you said you have notes. Take a bite. You know what you got for me? Cue up the questions, my brother.
Mine are, I actually just have a lot of observations.
Yeah.
More so than anything. One of the things that I liked a lot were like all the kind of small details throughout the movie, but more importantly, the kind of like what I guess I would call his like little subtle hints and nods to like Richard Donner's Superman, whether that be like utilizing the like a bit of like the John Williams score, but mostly like how, I don't know if you really looked at like the actual marketing material of Superman, and not so much like the trailers. I'm talking like posters, pictures, and things like that. The way that everything is kind of presented, even in my opinion, is different than when he first started back when it was supposed to be Superman Legacy. I felt like it morphed and changed a little bit. And if you notice, he started using this like kind of idea of like, here's a Superman logo, but it's kind of got like lights going through it. Yeah. And then how he uses red and blue as like separating like hue throughout. Yeah. I'm saying he, like James Gunn did this, but like how
he did everything. He did every aspect.
Like how the marketing team like
guy.
utilized like red light, blue light throughout like all the posters and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the movie itself. And so the reason I was saying that is because having done the thumbnails, I did the thumbnails like last week. The Superman font is just white. It's just white Superman. But in the movie, when in both the beginning and the end credits, they utilized that like Richard Donner era, like I don't know what to call it. I called it like a light bar font, where it's like
it's basically empty on the inside, but it's
like neon illuminated on the outside, but it also has like a 3D shadow box to
those streaks of light running through it. I think you were referring to before, because when he's flying out of the Fortress of Solitude after healing from his battle with the Hammer, and then the camera like sort of pivots and it goes underneath and it shows the his emblem. Everything transitions into that font. But that's a good point, because I think even the poster, when we were talking about the movie for a few minutes, has like that border of the red and blue and some kind of like white streak, yellow streaks coming through.
Yeah, which I thought was really, I was like, okay, that's actually pretty cool, because it gives you like a throwback to that time, while also still being modern enough to tell you like this is a different Superman story we're telling. This isn't Superman 6.
Yes.
This is like I am doing Superman now. This is how it's going to be going forward.
And I think we talked about that a little bit with Superman Returns, and how Superman Returns. And I don't know if you feel exactly this way, but I think part of the failure of that movie is that it was too much of it. There was no balance. There was no balance of let me pay homage to what came before, and let me try to be new. And it's not to say that completely it didn't try to modernize itself, but it was just very much a continuation of what, Richard Donner had done. I even think that they were trying to retcon Superman 3 and 4 by saying this movie basically takes place after Superman 2 with Christopher Reeves, and then would be the continuation of that story thereafter.
Yeah, I do always wonder, but Singer did that movie, right?
Yes,
yes. I always do wonder if there were plans to make another one because of how it felt almost like it was trying to be like the last Richard Donner movie.
Let's close the book on that chapter, and then I'll give you something with these same characters.
So I always wonder if that was a plan, or if it was just like, this is my homage to that era, and they only gave him that one shot.
Yeah.
But I will now kind of ask a question.
Yeah.
To bring this about. So we know while this is the first, it's hard to say if this is the first movie in the DCU, because technically, I guess the Suicide Squad is. But as far as like the train of DCU movies that will be coming forth, it is the essentially the first one. And as such, within its first minutes, it gives us a rundown of what has happened.
Yes.
It's a vague little blurb, but it is enough to question. So we now know that as far as metahumans go, and possibly the metahuman gene, that it's been 300 years since the first documented one showed up. Now, I take that to mean that it gives us a way of saying that characters like Wonder Woman, Dr. Fate, Etrigan, possibly Hawkman and Hawkgirl, all are from that period of time. Like, maybe we're even looking at someone like Black Lightning, even though in reality all of them should be 1,000 years out, because I would make the assumption that since so many of them are tied to like ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, that they should be further out, but this seems like it's the first documented. So Superman is about Corn Sweat's age of 32, and he's been Superman for 3 years. What do you think that means in terms of the other beings that exist in this universe?
What do you mean? Like their placement, like how old they are, relatively speaking?
Because we kind of talked about this in our other DCU talk about Batman. I personally have said that Batman likely will be in his like mid to late 30s, which gives time for him to have had multiple Robins. And I personally think that if he has a Robin when he's introduced, it will either be Tim or Damian. Likely Damian. Because it seems that we're just like in the midst of these guys' runs as opposed to any like starters.
Yeah.
When we're looking at like the Green Lantern situation, apparently Hal has already been a Green Lantern. John might be a Green Lantern, but just like out in space still. And it looks like currently Guy is like the reigning, like the patrolling Green Lantern of the sector. When we're looking at characters like an Aquaman or a Flash, do you think they already exist, or do you think we will see them become characters?
I think that some of their tentpole characters will be characters that already exist, while any new characters, or I should say more peripheral characters, think Justice League Unlimited, for instance, that characters that might be more on the fringe would be characters that James Gunn maybe would like to explore origins of. But I think that with the bulk of, again, your tentpole characters, it's for the most part people know their stories, which is why you can blow past that in the beginning of Superman, right? You don't need to necessarily go into him being raised and whatnot. Same thing with Batman, which I think even James Gunn came out saying that 3 of the superhero origins that we don't need to see on screen again are Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. So at least 2 of those characters would be in the universe that he's now overseeing, but I can definitely see there being more. Although somebody like Barry Allen or Wally West, whichever one they decide to go with in their DCU, what their Flash is, maybe that I could see that being a character that they would feel the need to just sort of tread over the origin a little bit more. But I think also with the Flash movie being one of the last films of Zack Snyder's universe, having only recently come out, I can see him also kind of feeling like, well, we can also rely on that for people's. But then it's like, who saw it? Who's interested? You know. So there's a lot of thoughts. I guess all that to say, there's a lot of thoughts that come to mind in response to that question. But I think that there are, depending on who he has as his main Justice League lineup, you're definitely going to need to have to do maybe an origin story or two.
So the Justice League, do you think that he'll replace the Justice Gang with the Justice League?
Or will they exist side by side?
Mm-hmm.
I think that, because I think if James Gunn was able to show me with this movie is that he's not afraid to go comic book, which I love, and I think that he would be the type of person that would have them exist at the same time, and then he can have smaller stories to be told with things like the International Justice League, or a future version of a Justice League, or just the Justice Gang, you know, with Metamorpho now, and like we were talking about, spoiler alerts, guys, but like, you know, Guy Gardner's Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific. I think in previous studios, they may have looked at it and been like, oh, well, this would be too confusing for the audience. We can't have two teams that have Justice in it. And they would have dismantled one and only focused on the other. What are your thoughts on it, though? Or what do you hope happens?
If I had to guess with what he has going, my guess is that the Justice Gang, and why they're being called the Justice Gang and don't have like a real name yet, is because they will evolve into the Justice League. And then we'll just see people like kind of move in and out of it. Like, for instance, I'm assuming probably around the time that Guy Gardner, like, Lanterns is a thing, Guy Gardner will probably like move away a little bit, and maybe that, and then we'll start to be able to add people like Superman himself, like Batman, like Wonder Woman. Because of the fact that Maxwell Lord is attached to them already. And it's funny about Maxwell Lord, because throughout the entire movie, I sat and I wondered, I was like, when is Sean
going
showing
to show
up?
Yeah.
And for up until the point that he showed up as Maxwell Lord, I kept wondering, I was like, is he Crypto?
What?
Then, I mean, because like he voices Weasel in both Suicide Squad and the animated project. So I was like, he could very well be just like the voice of like Crypto. But then he shows up as Maxwell Lord, and I'm like, that is a very interesting character to give to Sean Gunn, because so far in Gunn's like comic book moviedom, Sean typically plays like much smaller bit parts, but Maxwell Lord is a very important character in DC lore. So unless he just chooses to not use him very much, that is somebody who should show up a lot. And I think he's supposed to show up in Peacemaker. So it seems like they're going full in with the character, and it'll be interesting to see if he does follow his comic book character of being this person who was like the financier of the Justice League and helped form Justice League International and eventually becomes a villain. So it'll be very interesting to see that. That being said, I do think that the Justice Gang is already in the Hall of Justice. So it would just make sense for them to evolve into the Justice League.
Yeah.
And just have more characters instead of that being that like tentpole 7 that shows up since the New 52.
Yeah, this is going to be sorry, let me go ahead and finish your thoughts on that, because you said the Hall of Justice, and of course, since we are from Cincinnati, we do this. Of course, if you guys weren't aware, based here in Ohio. How cool was that to see that shot of Union Terminal as the Hall of Justice?
So I'd seen it before the movie, and I was like,
oh yeah, okay.
The Inquirer did a thing, and they showed like pictures of it.
Ah,
I was like, okay, that's like, because it was like, okay, they didn't really mess with the facade very much, because I thought that, like, my assumption was that they were just gonna do like much like in the Super Friends and just do that like very cut off version of it and like remove like the side buildings.
mm-hmm.
But it's like, nope, that's the whole.
That's
the whole thing. Like the if they had like reached out just a little bit more, I'd have been like, we could probably see like like the fountain and everything. And then when they went inside, and I was like, that's the inside of the Union Terminal. That's exactly what it looks like.
Not even redone. Like,
it's like, oh, that's so great.
So cool. Because I would have expected, especially on the inside, I would have expected it to be all teched out, like for them to have basically gutted it and then made it look something more of like a command station, something akin to what I would see or what we would see in Justice League, you know, from the Watchtower.
And I'm guessing that's to come. It seems like the Justice Gang is very, very new.
Yeah.
But they have been working a little bit because they've worked with Superman a number of times, and quite clearly the Hall of Justice is either just like right on the outside of Metropolis or is in Metropolis.
Yeah.
So
because Metropolis is based in Delaware, right? That's what I
apparently.
Okay. Because like when she walked out,
and there were Delaware plates, and I was like,
even though it
Delaware plates looked a lot like an Ohio plate.
With a little tiny Delaware right there.
I was like, what, is that Delaware's plates? I meant to look that up after we got out. I was like,
no,
it looks like an Ohio license plate, but it says Delaware.
They just got somebody to go to Michael's and then take a brush and just write Delaware right
It's
there.
probably all digital. No, but like, it was really cool to see. Like, because you don't get, like, Cincinnati is such a weird place because it's a middle-sized place. We're not big and known like New York or LA or Chicago, but we're not small, like, rinky-dink places that you barely know on like a map. Like, we're known enough, but we're also extremely underrepresented in terms of like our more iconic landmarks being shown in movies.
Very true.
So it was super cool to see. I will say that, and I know, where else did they film? It was Cincinnati,
Cleveland. Oh man, there were so many people. I've seen this movie 3 times already, and I guess the last time I didn't sit through the entire credits, but yeah, there was a couple other cities there.
Because I kind of wish they would have just used Paycor for the stadium scene.
Yeah, for the fight scene. Which is something about that, because you had mentioned, you talked some about your expectation, your questions that you have about what the future will be like coming out of this movie. But I am curious. We've known about this movie for a while now, and there's been so much hype around this movie. So I think in a way it's kind of different than a lot of the other movies that we've done, because even things that we've seen in theaters, for the most part, I think maybe the closest thing after this would maybe be Sinners, even, or Thunderbolts. Like, there's a lot seemingly riding on this movie, and there's a lot of speculation about this movie. There's a lot of theories and rumors kind of running around about who is Ultraman, what does this mean, what does that mean, when are these scenes taking place, and a lot of commentary about, man, this movie looks so overstuffed, like there's so much going on. How will it fit everything in a 2 hour and 10 minutes? So I'm curious, with any theories that you saw online, any rumors that you saw online, how far off was it? Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time trying, and I think we've talked about it on numerous occasions, trying to figure out, based off the trailers, how the movie was going to shape itself. And I will say that, and as far as like the movie's like scene by scene goes, I was wrong, and I went out of my way to like not really like go into other people's like rumors and theories and things like that, simply because I kind of had a feeling that none of us were going to really know. And I actually, I'm not going to say spoiler because we already said it, but when it comes to Ultraman, everyone got upset and thought that the toy listing for Ultraman spoiled it. And I knew there was no way.
Yeah.
Because, well, one, you should have known he had something to do with you because he had a U on his chest. But even then, I was like, there's no way it's actually Ultraman. You can call him, like, we were going to be calling him Ultraman because of Superman, but I knew he wasn't Ultraman. And I had posited the theory that it could have been Doomsday. But then after I posited that theory, something told me that it had to still be a clone. And when that part came in, I knew it was a clone before the movie. But I wasn't sure if they were going to go the Bizarro route or if they would go the Con-El route. And I still can't tell because he went into a black hole.
Which I'm so curious about, because yes, his name is Ultraman, and yes, it seems to a degree like that version, that clone of him is kind of inept. Because over the course of comic books, video games, TV shows, there's been a lot of different sort of versions of Superman clones. Like I remember in Young Justice, for instance, I think that Connor they basically needed Lex Luthor's DNA to sort of bridge the gap between the Kryptonian DNA and the human that they needed. And I've also seen in like Reign of Superman, for instance, in which Superboy, again, was a clone. I don't know if they needed Lex's DNA in that instance to bridge the gap.
Those are both Connor.
So those are both Con-El. Okay.
Yeah.
So like ultimately, like, okay, what is the direction I'm going to go with it? But I wonder, with his fate, and of course we're like jump way ahead here. What happens to Ultraman is that you come to find out that he is a clone of Clark, but in the final battle, he gets basically jettisoned into a black hole, and it makes me wonder if he survives being thrown into that black hole, gets thrown into another universe, and becomes Ultraman of like in an alternate universe syndicate.
I don't know. I kind of doubt it because of the fact that they seem to be implying Bizarro the way that like,
because he can't really speak for himself.
So my guess is that there are more of him, and we'll eventually see the one that becomes like Bizarro.
Oh man, that's gonna be such a creepy thing for a superhero. Just know somebody was combing every battleground for DNA so they could clone you.
And it's interesting I wonder what fight could have done that.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing, because I'm like, what could have knocked, because my understanding, like, dude can only get a haircut from, like, refracting his laser vision off of a mirror and cutting his own hair and beard and shit.
And they even say that, like, this fight that we don't see is the first time he lost. So it makes me wonder what he was, like, how he got hair, I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe maybe it just fell off of him. Like maybe he can naturally just shed from time to time, like humans do.
But I do think that's kind of like one of the cool things about how this movie plays out is that essentially when it starts, you're pretty much just thrown into the middle of Lex's plans already well underway. Like you're not even starting from him forming it and then you're seeing that evolve. So it does make me wonder, with all of the other creatures that he seems to have experimented with and things that he's created in the past 3 years, what has he created to throw at Clark in order to defeat him? Because obviously, it's like, dude, he has this kaiju that grows from being this tiny little, like, pug to a massive kaiju within, 12 hours?
And I also want to say that what I really appreciate, and I think without a doubt that this is what is going to help James Gunn's DCU stand out, and maybe even I hate to say it, not only stand out from the MCU, but possibly even at this point in time begin to usurp, like go past it, is that he didn't root himself in realism. Like Luthor is just making schemes and machinations and being able to do things without ever giving you any type of scientific explanation for why he has the ability to do these things. And it's like, if this was the MCU, they would have tried to give you some weird explanation on that kaiju about how it could be created and the science behind it just growing. In this movie, that was such a throwaway thing that it was just like, oh yeah, he has the ability to make monsters.
Which it makes comments like leading into this movie, things that I've heard about like special test screenings and whatnot, is that it feels like you're watching a Saturday morning cartoon, that it feels like you're watching an episode of animated series, which very much to your point, to even like to validate that, I have recently rewatched Superman the Animated Series, and something that I noticed about a lot of these like Bruce Timm produced cartoons and really cartoons of that era is the schemes that they would come up with were so nuts, dude.
Mm-hmm.
There's one where he lures Superman and Lois into this giant museum floor, and he has this animatronic T-Rex, but he's in a room where kryptonite is, so he's weakened Superman. And it's like, where would you get a giant mechanized T-Rex? They don't need to explain.
You don't even explain it.
They don't.
It's
Right.
like, and that's the thing that I like. The thing that I actually kind of found funny about this whole thing is that at the end of the day, Lex Luthor was talking so like highly of his intelligence, but his whole plan throughout the beginning to the end was just let me throw as much shit at Superman as humanly possible to see if we can stop him.
Kind of reminds me of almost kind of like how Bane did. Was it The Darkest Night? Or what did the storyline name that storyline where Bane broke Batman's back?
Nightfall?
Yeah, where he basically tired Bruce Wayne down by like over the course of 6 months, like very conveniently, I shouldn't say conveniently, but like releasing prisoners from Arkham to just kind of wear him down over time.
Yeah, like literally, like he was like, let me just throw as many different things at you as possible, and in the midst of that, also try to ruin your image, and then eventually I should win. And unfortunately for him, none of that happened because it's Superman. And it's fun. It's great, actually, because this isn't their first time clearly being against each other, but it gave Lex Luthor the true lesson I think he needed to learn, which was he needs to be better about how he goes about dealing with Superman. So, one, awesome that he did not die. That means he will be around. And two,
Lex.
yeah,
Yeah.
that means that he can continuously come back and plot and scheme because he's not going to stay in jail.
Yeah.
So he'll be able to get out again and again, doing anything he can to eventually figure out a way to deal with Superman.
Mm-hmm. Do you think with that idea that he'll maybe be the one that ends up creating Doomsday? Because I know you said that you thought that Ultraman
No,
maybe
I'm
was
thinking that Doomsday will be
from technically from
like
Krypton,
this seems
just
like
the same.
a thing
Cool.
about that. But there is one thing that I kind of thought was really weird, and I don't know if the plan is to eventually change things, but the whole, I don't know why Gunn chose to flip Jor-El the way he did. Like, I liked the little touch at the end that essentially was that Clark chooses John and Martha as his parents.
Yeah.
But to essentially kind of villainize his Kryptonian parents seemed very odd. And I'm not quite sure why he did that.
I thought the same thing.
And if there were any question I could ask James Gunn, that would probably be the question I would ask him. I hope he does get asked that question and answers it. I don't think it was a necessary. I honestly spent most of my time thinking that he was eventually going to rehear that and find that it had been doctored.
Yeah.
But they went so out of their way to say, no, it is not doctored. That was what his parents said.
Yeah.
That I'm like, why? But at the same time, I know it was all tied to the end that he finally chose John and Martha. But that was shown already, in my opinion, when he shows up at the farm and she sees the way that, or I should say that Lois sees the way that his parents treat him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movie wants to act like the first half of the message is what Clark has been abiding himself by to become Superman.
Right.
But in reality, it's the way he was raised by John and Martha that determined how he became Superman.
Oh, man.
And it's like, I guess he needed to learn that, but we could already see that well before he himself learns it.
Right.
And I don't think his parents needed to be vilified for that. You were saying earlier that you thought there was like some MCUism in the movie. Yes.
So I guess really there's two scenes. One is to be expected because of it's James Gunn, and this is kind of like his mark. I think with any director, any big time director, a director of his caliber, that you're gonna leave your mark. and you're going to explore a lot of the same motifs, whether that's a visual motif, whether that's a story motif. But two things. One is a scene that I absolutely love in this movie, and it made me love this character even more. Mr. Terrific. Mr. Terrific's scene, when he goes there, there's a couple things about this scene. One, I found it so interesting because the way that they edited the trailers of this movie, not only were there theories that I had that either proved wrong or were right, but I could not tell when things were happening in the movie. Like, when was the kaiju fight going to be? I thought that the fight at the stadium with Engineer, Superman, Mr. Terrific, and Ultraman was going to be like midway through the movie or like earlier in the movie, and it doesn't happen until the last act. And I was like, wow, I kind of had this coming in. I just thought there were going to be multiple altercations between Superman and I guess Superman and Ultraman. I guess technically there were, because, again, spoiler alert, but Ultraman is the hammer of Baravia at the end of the day.
And I think for me, I thought that was gonna, I guess because we knew about Ultraman and the hammer, I thought that the hammer came after.
Oh.
Part of me actually thought that the hammer of Baravia was Lex's power armor.
Yeah, same here. And then it would like kind of upgrade and evolve and become something else.
But nope.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. So you just thought kind of it was like James Gunn's like take on how he did things in Marvel.
Well, so that scene for me when he goes there with Lois it reminded me of Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where Yondu, there's that slow motion scene. I forget what music is playing during that scene, but he's, I think essentially has come back and had the device grafted to his skull, and he's taking all the people out on that ship, and he's just walking in slow motion, and the arrow is going around doing its thing. And it kind of reminded me of that to a degree. And then also the way that he uses music, usually in action sequences like that, it's familiar. But it's always got this unique touch to it, which I think is pretty cool. The scene I was mentioning earlier in this episode was with Lex at the end of the movie, when Lex gets up in Superman's face and he is talking to him, and then out of nowhere, Krypto comes in and just starts
wrecking him.
Yeah, it reminded me of Hulk and Loki at the end of Avengers, is what it was, where it was just like Loki was talking, I'm a god, and then Hulk but it took it a little bit further. It lasted a little bit longer. And
it lasted like an uncomfortable amount of time. Like I was like, he
like,
should be dead.
Yeah. Especially when you see who the dog belongs to. Yeah. I'm like, I'm surprised that he didn't rip Lex apart. But that scene, it reminded me of. Yeah,
okay, I can see that. So that beach part, did you realize why they've been playing music every time we saw like the beach scene?
I remember they were playing it when Ultraman landed. There was another song that was playing, but no, I didn't. Yeah.
So the reason that music was always playing over there, and why like the people that were always visible outside of the tents were dressed the way they were, it was to prevent Superman from looking over there. If Superman ever used to super hearing, he would have just heard music.
Yeah.
And if he like used any type of vision to look over there, he'd more likely just seen people dressed in beachwear.
Yeah. Because I was like, that's a good point. Because in that scene, you see him fighting not only the Raptor guards, but there's also people that look like they were just scientists dressed up in like, sun shirts and shorts with sunscreen on their nose, and they're also getting wrecked by these T-spheres. Don't call them T-circles. He's
circles
very mad.
They're three-dimensional.
Unbelievable.
I was listening to somebody else's like first take on the movie, and they said that Edie's Mr. Terrific reminded them of Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Tropic Thunder. Because it is kind of clear that he was like putting on like he was like a character. Like his Mr. Terrific wasn't just like, I'm Black Dude, Mr. Terrific. I'm Edie. He was going around as Mr. Terrific. It was I'm Mr. Terrific.
Goddamn Mr. Terrific.
Why don't you get up and do something, Clark?
I also love that in that scene, right before the action really popped off, somebody was like, "Isn't that one of the guys from the Justice Gang?" Oh, it's just the smart
The
one.
smart one.
Don't be worried. It's just the smart one.
And it's like, yeah, but you guys have been doing a lot of research on people. You think you would have done enough research on
he would know that this guy is actually pretty dangerous. Man, there was like such a cool shot. So when he just lifts up his arm and he grabs the T-sphere and floats over Lois's little bubble. Oh man. And also what I meant by the way that it was edited in the trailers is because I thought that Guy Gardner and Hawker were also going to be there, because the scene in the trailers that I had seen where Guy Gardner flips his hand and he's like knocking all over all the trucks, I thought that takes place in the same environment.
Because it looks a beach and then a desert area.
Exactly.
It came to my realization during that time. I was like, they never showed any of that part in any of the trailers. And for me to have gone, and I've probably said this in multiple of our videos, the beach.
What?
Like, do you ever see Mr. Terrific's fight in any of the trailers?
Mm-hmm.
Like do you?
Yeah, because there's a clip of him doing the thing where you literally see him as he has the people.
Oh yeah, he does that part. But I guess what I was saying, like, do you actually see the beach itself, or do you see it look more like Johansport?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, to notice it is.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Like, I can't tell if there's like a body of water. That is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was like, and that led me to realize that for all that mess I've been saying, that they were showing too much, there were still large chunks of this movie that they never showed.
Did not know about, right? And
I will apologize, James Gunn, and the marketing at Warner Brothers. You actually did a good job.
Yeah.
This time, I would still do less trailers next time, but you and Marvel were really going at it trailer for trailer with Superman and Fantastic Four.
Right.
So you happened to say something about like how you felt that there were some MCU-isms. I have and something that I felt it reminded me of.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm the only person that this may have happened to.
Okay.
When he got hurt, when he got out of the prison and went to Smallville, the movie reminded me of TMNT1.
Oh,
after Raphael gets hurt and they go to the farm, and after that moment, I put Lois and April together.
Interesting.
And then I put Jimmy Olsen as Danny, the kid who became like a Foot Clan dude.
Yeah.
Who's a friend that's with Ralph. And I could not. I was just like, this reminds me of TMNT. And I just could not tear myself away from that, like, because it really did feel like it, even down to like how he was hurt, how he looked when he was hurt, where they like kind of placed him. I was like, damn, this is, like, feels like TMNT one.
Mm-hmm.
But then it pulled away, and it made me kind of look at Jimmy more, because this is like a different take on Jimmy.
Yeah.
That it's not the most crazy one. Supergirl has the fucking craziest depiction of Jimmy Olsen.
Supergirl, yeah, the TV show.
Yeah, but
do you think it's crazier than what Zack Snyder did with Jimmy Olsen and Batman versus Superman?
That also was a weird one,
right?
This one is a really good representation of him, I think, for a modern time.
Right.
I couldn't tell if he was still the photographer.
I don't think I saw him take one picture,
because he didn't take any pictures, and he was like he like basically helped write that article at the end. But having him, it was clear that he was younger than everybody, but he also wasn't like a kid the way that the early comics made Jimmy Olsen be, where like everybody, like Superman had to constantly be like, it's my buddy Jimmy, I gotta protect him. Like Jimmy was capable in doing things on his own, along with Lois, who was not a damsel in distress at all in this movie.
Yeah.
And the Daily Planet crew got their shine without being constantly shown. And that made me be like, this, like, I know I'll see these guys like multiple times throughout multiple movies. and it makes you want to like learn more about them, especially Jimmy, because they
dude, right?
Like why is Jimmy so popular with all the ladies?
Dude, so popular, man. Like from the moment they showed him.
Man, they're like the little like the intern girls are, oh hey Jimmy, and you're like,
oh my god, he's so hot.
like are we looking at the same Jimmy Olsen? Like looking at this guy over here? But especially when like Clark Kent is sitting next
right,
to him.
He's like a foot taller.
But they was loving them some Jimmy,
yeah,
and Jimmy got to be the crux of it all, because if it wasn't for Jimmy,
dude, they would have never.
They wouldn't have gotten any of that information
yeah.
that they gotten. And to have Eve Tessmacher be like re-represented in this movie in the way that she was, and also to have her, I love that like little play on like she had been taking selfies, and it just looked like she had been taking selfies, and then you're like, nope, she's actually been documenting every single thing, and to know that she was intentionally doing that throughout the entire movie, every time we saw her, made it so that you're like, she's not as dumb as she's playing.
You know what's funny? I thought that when Lois made a comment about that she was just kind of saying like she's a genius, as in like she doesn't know that she's a genius because she was taking those photos of that evidence accidentally rather than an intentional selfie to capture what he was doing. But it would be very interesting, if it actually turns out that she was like way smarter.
Well, when they start to show like when they're talking to Perry and they're going over her selfies, every single one of the selfies she took was intentionally in front of documents.
I thought there was one where there was like a selfie that was like in front of a mirror, and I was like, oh.
And even that mirror had documentation. Like she was very intentionally taking like selfies around his information.
I thought the mirror was the president's room in Barovia, because it wasn't his like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So like she was very intentionally documenting what Lex was doing.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting to know why she may have been doing that, because it doesn't seem like she had been giving Jimmy information up until like he started asking for it.
Right.
So then she was doing it beforehand. So maybe she was watching her back, because I think she may have also known what he had been doing to his exes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was just keeping herself like safe.
Yeah.
But this movie, everything about it felt right.
Yes.
Like I have my grievances with like some of the choices, but then he'd start like flying or something, and they would
all melt away.
And I'd be like, oh man, this is so cool. Like that fight after he kind of got free and he was like fighting like the raptors and stuff, and like they were like, oh, we don't care, we'll just do CG here. And I was like, that's fine with me, because at this point it looks like a Dragon Ball Z fight. And he's just up in the air, just wrecking dudes, and they're genetically engineered enough that like punching them isn't killing them immediately. And then they all like jumped on top of him, but then he just spun a whole bunch to spin them all off, and then he took his lasers out and just was pirouetting.
So nuts, man. Like it was one of those things where watching all of that unravel, it was just so incredible. It felt so Superman, and I love that he was able to inject some of those shots. He injected some pretty iconic shots, like when Superman came in and saved that woman that was about to be like crushed by that building, and then it finally collapses and the bridge falls, and she looks back in the rearview mirror, and he's just like floating there. I'm like, that is Superman. And then also when he put that combo on his clone, and then the music starts, dun, 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 and he comes out, and he's...
He
put
moves on him.
He was doing things that I did not expect.
Uppercut.
The engineer.
Like the cross, and then like the grab, super 360 spin, like through, like knocking him into stuff, and then launch him against the wall. And then the engineer, she got...
When he was spinning with her and like slamming her on the ground, like, ah!
I was like, you need to stay out this fight, sis, because these some heavyweights you fighting.
Crazy, dude. That was, and it also makes more sense as to why Superman would be shown getting so beat up. Like, it wasn't just this was any normal enemy he was fighting. He was literally fighting his clone, somebody who would be comparable in strength, but then also have the being guided by the intelligence of Lex Luthor is kind of insane. And so it's interesting to me that the movie would actually start off with something that I guess ended up being somewhat controversial, because one of the first things that you see in one of the first Superman trailers is him landing in the snow in the Arctic, beat up and bloody. And so to start this movie off with showing him in that state is so different than I think other Superman movies have done, because you're kicking it right off by showing, hey, guess what? This Superman can get hurt. He can be beat. And this is me showing him in a very vulnerable state, actually. And this was within the first 90 seconds of the movie.
It also did something that I rather enjoyed, which was that it placed us in the middle of an event as opposed to starting the event. So it almost felt like it could have been like the continuation of a movie that existed beforehand, but doesn't. And as such, it gives you that like slice of like life that comic books do, and that we don't get enough in comic book movies, because they really, for some reason, they think that because 90% of the audience is probably going to be people who don't read comics, that they have to like teach you who this person is. Yeah. And then like they can do that type of thing in sequels. Whereas this is like, no, you know who Superman is. He's been fighting this guy for a while. Let's get it. Let's see what's happening. I
mean, I do think there are certainly characters in the movie though where people, from like a general audience perspective, if you didn't know anything about the DC, like if you had a very surface level knowledge of the DC universe, it might be somewhat confusing. Like I think Metamorpho, for instance, might be kind of confusing to some people.
And he might be, but you don't need to know. It's a Superman movie. It wasn't a Metamorpho movie.
No, absolutely.
And as such, it allows you to be like, who's that dude? And then later on, they'll be like, this is who Metamorpho is. Now, I will say that this movie does not do enough of that. What it does a little bit too much is exposit the hell out of situations that it does not call for
okay, so you noticed that as well. Okay, because there were certain things where, because again, to reiterate, dude, I absolutely freaking love this movie. But to your point, there was one line, for instance, and I don't know if you feel the same way. I would love to get your opinion on this, but it was from the engineer when they come back to the Fortress of Solitude, this time with Ultraman. We know why now the fortress opened for them. But when standing at that console, the engineer looks over at Lex and she says something to the effect of, I know, I sacrificed my humanity for this. And I'm like
I don't care. You don't need to tell me that.
Like, it was... Because it was one of those things that, I don't know, it kind of felt like they needed to insert to just also reiterate and highlight the fact that she's not a normal human, which I see that. I don't know really what would be the point of it, but it felt like it needed to explain that. But it came out to me kind of like a clunky line.
It was a very clunky line. Yeah. And there were a few of them in there.
What can you throw me another?
The very beginning. So after, like, the robots. Like, they just start, like, expositing for no reason.
He loves this. It soothes him. And then, like,
like, those are his parents. He's from the land of Krypton. His parents soothe him.
Yeah. And it's like, do you say this every time, like, you're healing Superman? Or is it just because that robot was new that it needed to?
Like, because 22, she's new. Yeah. So let's explain things.
But you would think that there would just be some program that would upload and just kind of, like, get it up to speed and not need the
I think it would have came out of, like, the robot chamber. Like,
okay, Gary, we get it. Which was something interesting, actually, now that I think about it. Like, the number of times that the robots needed to emphasize, we have no consciousness, we don't care. But then he's like, well, Gary's a name. Like, he's mad that he doesn't have a name, but he keeps reiterating, this dog. And he knows that in our hearts of hearts, we couldn't care less if he lived or died. But then you care if you're, like, called Gary or number 4.
4's a name. So is Gary. Like, times like that, that part with the engineer, I was like, I don't care, sis. I genuinely wanted to say that out loud. Like, we don't care. You are an expert. You do not care as a character. You do not matter.
But Lex, that will tear a dimensional rift in the surrounding area.
Yes, and it's like, we know. We see it. We see it happening. And Lex Luthor doesn't care either.
He does, yeah,
So-
dude. And we'll do it from the bunker once I get to a city that we care about. Dude, he had some pretty vicious lines.
He did.
Pick that up.
But I genuinely did love his like that little ending part where Superman thought he kind of got him with the envy part, and he's like, "I'm not stupid. I know I'm envious.
Yeah.
My envy is what's making me who I am, and what is driving me to be able to do what I can do. So I'm going to keep a hold of this envy and show you why you should not matter and why I matter more."
And then him going into that explanation, I think we talked a little bit about this last night, but it reminded me so much of like All-Star Superman and that scene between Clark and Lex when he's in. Is he at Riker? Is Riker's? I always forget. Is Riker's DC?
He was. I think he was at Belle Reef.
Belle Reef. Okay.
And also, yeah, I think he was in Belle Reef and All Stars.
Gotcha.
Superman. Riker's is more of a Marvel thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, he's like, I don't care. And I know all about me.
Yes.
I don't need a therapist.
You're not teaching me anything.
And it made it so that Superman also learned his place, which was that this is a person that I can't just use talk no jutsu on to like solve an issue, because he is a different breed of person. Like I imagine that we might to some degree see the same type of conversation between an eventual Batman and Joker, where Batman realizes that this is a person who cannot be fixed, but I am going to try to do everything I can to keep him like away from people, but eventually try to get him fixed.
Yeah.
And I think Superman sees this as a person that I can't save, but I will be trying my hardest to save him.
You know, another thing about this movie that was so interesting is like the compassion that he was able to show. Like he was such a compassionate character, and it was such just like a 180 from Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. And this is not to say that I didn't enjoy Henry Cavill as Superman, but it's when you see scenes and it seems like the Justice Gang cares less about collateral damage than Superman does, and he's punching the kaiju and making sure he doesn't land into a building, or catching him before he falls on a potential group of people, or saving squirrels from the car. And I don't know if you caught this, and maybe this is just me kind of projecting or looking into this a little bit too much, but even when Lex lost at the end of the movie, it almost kind of seemed like Superman felt bad.
He did. And
Which is
that's what I was
crazy.
going to say, like when you were talking about his compassion, is that if you recall, like Superman had every right to, I'm not going to say he had every right to kill him, but he had every right to be the most angriest he could possibly be.
Dude, Molly, oh my
like
god.
him, like, and he, like, all of that happened. And at the end of the day, he didn't even say, "I told you so." When Lex sat there in tears of anger, I'm going to say more so than sadness, were coming down his face, Superman didn't smirk. Superman just looked at him. And then, like, then the preceding events happened. And never once was he like, "Yep, told you so, Lex." Like, see, these people do, like, he just let Lex's emotions ride and then just let him get carried off and taken away. And that goes to show that, and I'm not apologetic to the Snyderverse, but I'm going to say that I think if instead of Batman versus Superman, there was a Man of Steel 2, I actually think Snyder would have done a better job of portraying a more lighthearted and open Superman. Because I think that was what the point of getting to the end of the first Man of Steel was. The problem is that we then jumped into his death.
Yes.
And that, I think, hurt the character, how I saw the character personally, a lot. Because he didn't get the growth that I think the end of the movie was trying to show you.
It was also very interesting in that aspect because, and I think you mentioned this before, which I think is an awesome observation, in that you had two characters that should really kind of be best of friends, but almost polar opposites in their demeanor. But they almost kind of had too similar of a demeanor. They were both brooding. They were both kind of like closed off, which was very interesting. But yeah, like the compassion that he shows, and I wonder from, again, a general audience perspective, or people that were very much like fans of the previous DC universe, or even people that weren't fans of that and thought that the compassion was a little bit too much. But the thing is that's Superman, like the way that he cares about life. And also you have to understand that ideally this would not be the first and last time that we see this Superman. So there's just room for growth. Think about what this Superman will be like and how intimidating it will be when he actually loses his cool on screen. It'll be a far cry from what we saw when he's saving squirrels from passing cars, dude. Like you'll actually see growth, and there's this room to elevate, to expand, to explore, and that is so exciting because I loved everything about like the casting, and I can't wait to get more of my Rachel as Lois or David as Superman and Nicholas as Lex and God, I forget the guy's name, the guy who played Jimmy, and really all of these characters. It was just so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And I also liked that he allowed Superman to be like hokey and like a bit of a cornball.
Golly.
But that to not be because he's an alien, but because he was just a little like Midwest, like small town, like hick, like hadn't gotten to see the greater world until like the past like maybe 4 or so years. So he still maintained that just like kind of naivety that came from being raised by John and Martha Kent, and like seeing those two. And I love the fact that, and unlike in a lot of the other movies, the two were made to not look like they could have birthed Clark Kent, and instead looked like two people from the middle of Kansas. And I was watching, and I forget his name, but the gentleman who plays John, he looked like if Uncle Phil and John Goodman had done like the fusion dance and became like just a sort of short like Santa Claus looking figure.
So is that if like John Goodman John Goodman who
so he's
John Goodman, Uncle Phil?
It's Uncle Phil,
yeah,
and then like current day old John
Goodman. But is that like a perfect fusion, or is that one of the ones where they're like slightly off?
Slightly off.
Okay.
Because and if like you know how like it's like so you know how like there's Gogeta and Vegito because one like takes more precedence over the other.
Yeah.
In this case, he was like more Uncle Phil, but he had the parts of like Goodman. He just didn't have Uncle Phil's height.
So he was
like the
Uncle Goodman.
Yeah. But he got to sit there and essentially show that he was him and Martha, like they showed that they were the human side of Clark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's supposed to happen.
Yes.
There's no sit down conversation saying, well, maybe you should let those kids die, or humanity doesn't owe you a thing.
Yeah.
Superman knows humanity doesn't owe him a thing, but he wants humanity to accept him because he himself strives to be a human. That's what Superman is supposed to be.
Yeah. Because Superman doesn't need to sleep. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to do those things, but he does it anyway.
Yes.
Because he wants to be.
Like it's the old adage of Batman is the true character, but Clark Kent is the true one. Like Superman is the alter ego. Clark is the real one. Batman is the real one, and Bruce is the alter ego.
Yeah.
Wait, that's how it's supposed to be. Ugh. Anyway, your final thoughts on what you thought about this movie?
I think that this movie, something that this movie made me question is, and something that we talked about before, is why are our expectations our expectations? You know, has the MCU really done something to us where it's like we can only accept a movie if it has this exact pace? Because I won't lie, the pace of Man of Steel, for everything that it fits in, it can be pretty frenetic, but it doesn't ever feel to me like it was missing pieces that helped me bridge the gap to understand what the movie was about. Typically, when a movie has a very frenetic and fast, kind of like chaotic pace, it's missing key elements that allow me to bridge the gap in knowledge. Like, to me, it's kind of like what the theatrical release of Batman versus Superman was, where they left out like key pieces that would make the movie, like, you understand the movie, and then the Ultimate Edition comes out and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's what you were, and this movie, James Gunn does such a good job with taking a lot and being able to condense it and allowing you to understand like the scope of this world, and a lot of things that you brought up about not needing to put you into the beginning. So there's so much that this movie makes me excited about, because it feels like I can trust that each one of these directors might take a slightly different approach to how they tackle their movies, but it will feel like an amazing and solid story that you want to be a part of, and a universe that you want to exist in. And it will take you into something that feels unique and different, because Superman feels unique and different. And I'm very appreciative of everything that team was able to do, from Gunn to David to Rachel, and what they were able to do with bringing this movie to life. And I'm just so excited to see how this universe expands, especially with the nod that we got at the end in the Fortress of Solitude with Kara. What about you?
Very interested to see the future of the DCU, and very impressed with this movie. I don't know if I had an expectation on whether it would be good or bad. I think my expectation was that it was maybe too much. Like, too much was going to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out that was not the case, and that the story actually made sense. It flowed. Every character was represented well, and every scene, in my opinion, actually did like work and flow into each other. And against your expectation, it made me realize that I should not have been trying to piece together this movie. Mm-hmm. I should have just let it happen and then gone into it.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying things like, I was wondering if the fight that we saw in the stadium was going to lead to the Fortress of Solitude. And it turned out that was not the case at all. And it wouldn't even have made sense. I don't think it would have made sense if that part had happened in the middle of the movie. It made perfect sense for it to happen where it happened.
Yes.
And that being the same for everything else. Now that we've gotten to see Kara and how her character is going to be, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going on there, especially his little note about her going to other planets, seeming that maybe her story is not going to be solely an Earth-based story.
Yeah.
And that means we're going to get to see like the intergalactic side so much earlier than we got to see in the MCU.
Absolutely.
And it makes a lot of sense. James does love that side of comic books. So maybe we get to see like early look at like Lobo, or maybe we get to see like
which Lobo is supposed to have a significant presence in the movie, so especially seeing how she's being portrayed there.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be really interesting to see going forward, maybe even like some lanterns.
Oh, dude.
I got to leave a theater kind of really for the first time in a while in a comic book movie, leaving being like, man, yeah. Like, I'm ready. Like, I was not like a Debbie Downer on like any of the MCU movies that we've seen recently. It's just I kind of left being like, and that was another one. Like, ready for the next thing to happen. And this one, I'm more ready for the next thing to happen. And maybe it's just like the honeymoon phase because it's new to us. But I think James is going to do a good job with the DCU. And I just look ready for what's to come.
I think James Gunn is the person who I trust that he's going to understand the assignment. And I think right now that's all I need.
Yeah. And so thank you all for listening.
Absolutely.
If you have any, like, if you've seen the movie, we want to know what you thought about the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, why are you listening to this far into it? We told you, spoilers alert, and go watch it at the very beginning of this. But as always, please like, share, subscribe. We do this for us, really. But we would also like to do it for you guys as well. And getting more engagement will definitely let us know what more we could be doing. Yeah. But rest assured, we're going to be doing it anyway because we like talking too much. So This is Damon.
And this is Farron.
And thank you all for listening to yet another episode of Panharmonicon Studios Presents
a podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Catch you in the next one, guys.
Panharmonicon presents a podcast.